Right, as you might expect, millions of people are bracing for this and what it may bring: lethal storm surges, ferocious winds, and potential tornadoes as Hurricane Milton barrels its way toward Florida. The National Hurricane Center is warning that the storm will be life-threatening and devastating to part of the state's west coast. Milton already has forced mass evacuations and some gas shortages as people prepare to hunker down or flee for safety.
I live close to the water, and I have a lot of sliding doors that I want to get prepared for because I am worried about flooding. I'm in a flood zone.
We want to evacuate probably in the next couple hours. We're going inland. I guess we're prepared to sit in the traffic.
They say it's going to be biblical, so we were going to stay, but I don't want to take the chance because of the bridges also. Once they're covered, you can't get out.
I want you to take a look at this. It's how huge Hurricane Milton is, as seen from the International Space Station just yesterday. It's covering much of the Gulf of Mexico. Milton is currently swirling as a Category 5 storm. That means it has winds up to 160 miles per hour. Now, it may weaken in strength, but it will still be serious when it makes landfall. It's expected to double in size, in fact, before that happens late tonight or early Thursday as a Category 3 storm. I want to get you to Tallahassee. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis providing an update on Hurricane Milton.
To prepare and respond to Hurricane Helene, and then now to prepare and respond to this new major hurricane. The common virtue has been dedication. Dedication to the task at hand, dedication to responding to help our fellow Floridians in danger, and dedication to ensuring that Florida weathers this storm and emerges stronger on the other side. We are prepared and we will respond. I've spoken to the President. We remain in regular contact with FEMA, and we are marshaling all available resources to be able to prepare and respond to Hurricane Milton. I also want to thank the 20 other states who are assisting Florida ahead of the storm. This is just what we as Americans do. We've had opportunities to help other states in the past, including most recently in Western North Carolina, and I think it shows the spirit that these states are stepping up and providing really valued support. We still have a state of emergency for 51 Florida counties. Hurricane Milton is still a major, very strong hurricane. It's currently a Category 4 hurricane with maximum sustained winds of 155 miles per hour. That is just a whisker shy of a Category 5. And while there is the hope that it will weaken more before landfall, there is high confidence that this hurricane is going to pack a major, major punch and do an awful lot of damage. As you can see behind me, the Florida Division of Emergency Management is fully deployed, fully active. This has been a footing now for over 2 weeks, given both of these storms. The state is actively fulfilling over 1,500 missions. We've delivered massive amounts of supplies, meals, water bottles, sandbags, tarps, generators to be able to help our local communities respond to this storm. We've also deployed more than 11,000 feet of flood protection systems and erected them around critical infrastructure like hospitals, wastewater treatment facilities, and electric infrastructure. Generators have been deployed at shelters and to support sheltering operations. Starlink Internet has been deployed across the entire state of Florida. We have surged an additional 600 ambulances, and they are currently in operation helping in the effort. The state of Florida has considerable fuel reserves ahead of Milton, and it's staged, and they will be utilized as needed following the storm. We've already dispatched a lot of fuel in the lead up to this, but we still have on hand 1.6 million gallons of diesel and 1.1 million gallons of gasoline. There is no, right now, fuel shortage. However, demand has been extraordinarily high, and some gas stations have run out. To be able to help ameliorate that, the Florida Highway Patrol has facilitated 106 long-distance fuel tanker escorts with sirens getting through traffic, totaling almost 1 million gallons of gasoline from ports in Tampa, Jacksonville, Everglades, and Manatee, and they are continuing with the fuel escorts as we speak. I'm in contact with the ports on the west coast of Florida. We'll see how this storm impacts those. Clearly, there's a chance that you could have a major impact on Port Manatee as well as on Port Tampa Bay. That could interrupt their ability to receive fuel shipments. And so we're working on contingencies to be able to keep fuel flowing throughout the state of Florida. As we saw this new storm develop, it was clear that a lot of the hardest hit areas on the west coast of Florida from Hurricane Helene had not had major, robust debris removal contracts in place or operations in place. Some of these contractors were good. Some of them were not getting the job done. So you had a major hazard on barrier islands in Pinellas, Manatee, and Sarasota County. So this weekend, I authorized mandated 24/7 debris removal. We took all the Florida Department of Transportation and other agency vehicles, brought them from all across the state, and they are engaged in other missions as their normal course of business, and dedicated it to debris removal. So in a little over 48 hours, and they were working all through the night, in the wee hours of the morning in places like Manatee, Sarasota, and Pinellas. They were able to remove 55,000 cubic yards of debris. So that's over 3,000 truckloads of debris. And it's our estimation that on those barrier islands, they were able to make a dent in the debris and reduce it by about 50% just from what Jared Perdue and the other agencies were able to get done. So I want to thank everybody that's been involved in that. It did not stop since this weekend. We're now in a position where it's likely the conditions are going to deteriorate, and so we're going to have to wind that down. But they did make a difference, and there will be less damage from this storm as a result of getting that debris out than there otherwise would have been. The Florida Department of Transportation is staging the following assets ahead of the storm: 156 bridge inspectors, 328 cut and toss personnel, and over 1,500 pieces of heavy equipment. Florida National Guard, Florida State Guard, Florida Fish and Wildlife, and the Florida Highway Patrol have activated additional personnel in advance of the storm. We have hundreds of state search and rescue personnel on hand, 26 total teams. They are currently embedded in the potential impact sites along the West Coast to begin immediate rescue operations as soon as the storm passes. The National Guard is deploying 6,000 Florida National Guardsmen, as well as 3,000 National Guardsmen from other states, and so we thank for the support on that. We have 34 search and rescue aircraft, and that includes some of the aircraft that have been brought in from other states. We have 500 tactical vehicles, including 180 high water vehicles, aerial, water, and ground National Guard search and rescue teams. This is the largest Florida National Guard search and rescue mobilization in the entire history of the state of Florida. Our Florida State Guard is also deploying almost 200 soldiers, 10 maritime crews, 3 high water UTVs, 2 UH-60 Black Hawk helicopters, 4 drone teams, 15 cut and toss crews, 2 amphibious rescue crews. We want to thank them. I mean, this was just a dream a couple years ago that they would be involved, and there was a lot of unfair criticism when we stood it up, but they have made a huge difference in this hurricane season. They're going to continue to do it here. We have also worked with the utilities to have the largest staging of utility workers and linemen in advance of the storm any time in American history. We will have in Florida, by the time the storm arises, over 50,000 linemen. And those linemen are being brought in from places as far away as California. So as soon as that storm passes, you're going to see the assessments and the power restoration efforts commence immediately. Additionally, the state of Florida has assisted with the evacuation of 352 healthcare facilities in the potential path of the storm. 16 hospitals have been evacuated. The state veteran nursing homes are currently located that are in the cone, are all accepting families of their residents to shelter with them. All of those are hurricane proof. All of them are outside of flood zones. So if you do have a family member that's in one of our state nursing homes, you can go and you can shelter with them. That's a safe option, and I know the veterans would appreciate it. The Florida Department of Law Enforcement is directing deployment of additional 500 out-of-state law enforcement officers. These officers will help respond after the storm to maintain law and order. And there is going to be a lot of damage from this storm. There's going to be opportunities for people to try to take advantage of that. My message to you is don't even think about it. We are going to come down hard on you. You are not going to be, you're going to regret that you tried to do that. So I appreciate all the other folks from out of state who are coming in to supplement this effort. We need to maintain law and order. FDLE's mutual aid team is managing more than 70 active law enforcement missions, including identifying post-storm response squads, and these are really important missions, and we're happy for that. So we're preparing for Milton, but we're also still recovering from Hurricane Helene. When Hurricane Helene hit, we reactivated the Florida Disaster Fund. We are now accepting donations into the Florida Disaster Fund for both storms, both Helene and for Milton. This is a private fund. It's affiliated with the state in terms of disaster, but it's tax deductible donations. We distributed $63 million after Hurricane Ian to help people largely in Southwest Florida. This is something that is really, really important. So I've directed Volunteer Florida to keep the fund activated for Hurricane Milton. I want to thank, there's already been millions raised for Helene. I want to thank Lennar, Wells Fargo, Walmart, and Publix for making really significant donations. And I know there's going to be a lot more that are going to want to do it. To contribute to the Florida Disaster Fund, you can text disaster to 20222. Disaster to 20222, or you can visit floridadisasterfund.org. So now we're bearing down to where the storm is going to arrive within the next 24 hours. You still have time to evacuate if you are in an evacuation zone, particularly if you're in Manatee, Sarasota, Charlotte, those areas. I mean, this track can bounce around. It's not guaranteed it's going to hit there. A lot of the solutions have it going there. You have time to do that. Now, conditions aren't going to be great today. I would say that the roads and the interstates, they are flowing. We've waived tolls. We've done all that so people can do. But the best option would probably be just to evacuate within your own county to one of the shelters. All those counties have multiple shelters that are open. There's a lot of space in those shelters right now, and certainly it would be safe to do a very short evacuation, tens of miles, rather than get on the interstate and go. The roads are still open. People can do that, but I just want to warn people that the conditions are likely going to continue to deteriorate throughout the course of the day. We had, of course, on Monday, when the initial evacuations were coming down, particularly in the Tampa Bay area, had a lot of traffic on I-4 and on I-75. FDOT did the emergency shoulder plan. That helped, but it was slow, and those roads can be very slow anyways. By the time we got to the end of the night, through the wee hours of the morning, it was going pretty quickly. Yesterday was not as bad on those roads as it was on Monday, but what we did see is Alligator Alley down in southern Florida was about 150% of its normal capacity, and I think that's because as people saw the storm potentially bending a little further south, I think a lot of people in Southwest Florida decided to evacuate across the state, and so that's that. The roads now are good, but I would just caution the conditions are not great now, and they're likely going to get worse as the day goes on. Of course, we do have a lot of mandatory evacuations in place. If you want to get a hotel, you can go to visitflorida.com/Priceline, Expedia.com/Florida. That is the emergency accommodation module that is there. I'm not sure what availability there's going to be in a lot of these places at this point, but if that's something that you're interested in, you can try that. Of course, we've worked with the Florida Restaurant and Lodging Association for distress rates for hotels, as well as
all right, we've heard some of the big headlines there from Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida saying that while now you do still have a chance to evacuate from what will be some of the hardest hit areas, conditions will deteriorate. They've already started to get worse, and they will continue to do so for the rest of the day. We also heard him reference that while they are as prepared as possible, including having the largest deployment of the Florida National Guard in the state's history, that there still will be a serious and strong hurricane when it makes landfall. Mayor of Largo, Florida, is joining us now, Woody Brown, and where you are, Mayor, is right next to Tampa. You're north of Sarasota. You're sitting in between effectively two bodies of water. You've got the Gulf on one side of you. You've got Tampa Bay on the other side. How, I want to ask you about shelters, if anyone is even left in your town, because the governor there said that they are making sure generators get to shelters where you are. So how prepared do you feel right now?
Everything we can. We've got a few hours left of preparation time. If you're in an evacuation zone or in a mobile home, we urge you to get out. Our shelters in the county are reaching capacity, but we still have room, and there's still ways to get there even if you need transportation. So now's the time. That window is going to shut in a few hours. We've been spending the last week cleaning up from Helene, so there's still a lot of stuff around town from that. We had about 160 homes that had major damage from Helene, either stormwater or wind, and it's only going to be worse in the next 24 hours. So if you're here and you're not leaving, make sure that you're out of an evacuation zone in a structure that's designed to handle it. And our team is going home right now to rest, with the exception of the people picking up debris still, and they'll be staging coming back to our team camp to wait for this to pass so we can start clearing the roads and getting people back to their places.
Yeah, it appears that there's been 4 days of at least preparedness for this massive hurricane, and you are staying with your team to kind of have a home base and a camp to help people. But for those not in Florida, help us understand who these people are who decide to stay and ride these things out. I mean, to some extent, people in Florida are used to major storms. They're used to powerful hurricanes. They know what to do. And not everyone has the luxury of driving a few hours out, taking their pets and animals and uprooting themselves. From what you can tell, how many people are going to ride this out, and why are they doing so?
Well, a lot of people have lived here most of their life, like myself, and we've seen a lot of warnings in the past, but nothing's hit us directly. So I think they're just resilient. Yeah, it's tough to say.
It sounds like what you're telling me is that for people from here who've always lived here, they kind of take these things personally, and they don't want to leave their homes, the place they love, where they've grown up.
Absolutely, and you know, if you leave, we tell people that the best evacuation is a place that's high and dry, that's ready for the wind, that's only 4 miles, you know, close to your house. Right now, I'm sitting about 65 feet above sea level, so we're not going to get storm surge here. We're not likely going to be inundated with rainwater here. So this is a good place to evacuate if you're going to stay in the county. Folks don't want to leave their belongings and go 10 hours away and then not be able to get back for weeks. And that's the real challenge. A lot of people have seen warnings in this area over and over again, and the storms have gone south and hit Charlotte Harbor with Charlie, and this one's going to hit us. It's going to hit us or just south of us, and we're going to get 100-mile-an-hour winds for hours on end, and a lot of rain. We're on the wet side of the storm. Our ground is saturated from a wet August and Hurricane Helene, and then Debbie before that. So we don't have the ground, you know, we don't have the capacity in our stormwater to handle hours and hours of rain.
Yeah, Mayor Woody Brown, we appreciate you spending some of this important day with us. You're getting the message out that people have a little bit of time left to evacuate, but I think folks can be reassured that you and your team will be there to help those in need in the days ahead. And of course, an open invite to stay in contact with us as things continue. Mayor, thank you for your time.
Thank you for helping us get the message out.
You are looking at live pictures of Fort Myers, Florida, courtesy of our EarthCam. People there have just a few hours left to evacuate the area or hunker down ahead of Hurricane Milton's expected landfall. Now, Fort Myers still recovering, by the way, from the effects of Hurricane Helene just a couple weeks ago. Here's what the city looked like when that storm made landfall about 2 weeks ago. Helene brought about 3 feet of storm surge to that area. Now, Milton is expected to be much different. The city is now facing up to 12 feet of storm surge. Think about that. The National Weather Service is calling the conditions catastrophic and, quote, life-threatening. Fort Myers Mayor Kevin Anderson is bracing for that impact today. Mayor Anderson, thanks so much for being with us. What's your biggest concern for Hurricane Milton with less than 24 hours until this storm hits?
The big two concerns really is, one, how bad will the storm surge be? But more importantly, what about those people who have chosen to ignore the evacuation orders, and what's going to happen with them?
Now, what should Fort Myers residents be doing right now, today, to prepare for this hurricane? And how is the city prepared so far? Have most people gotten out?
So it's really too late to start preparing. They should have already been prepared. Now the city is prepared. We've done all the necessary preparations that we can. More importantly, we are ready to hit the ground, boots on the ground, as soon as the storm passes and it's safe.
Now, I should note, sir, that you are staying in the city. How are you staying safe?
I'm on a second story, in a second story condo. I should be fine even if we get the maximum surge.
And do you have a lot of shelters in the area? There may be people at home listening to this right now wondering if they should get out. Are there resources for them now?
Oh, absolutely. There are, the last count, 13 shelters have been opened up. I think somewhere between 5,000 and 6,000 people have taken advantage of it. For those who haven't left yet, you still have time, but that window is closing. So if you're going to evacuate and get to a shelter, you need to do so immediately.
You know, what makes hurricanes like this so scary is the potential for them to sit on a specific area for long periods of time and bring with it torrential rains, which can be just as devastating as the initial surge. Are you concerned for that?
I'm concerned with this storm on a lot of levels because I've seen a lot of storms in my time here in Southwest Florida, Ian being the worst. This one really has me concerned because the intensity of the winds, the possibility for storm surge, as you mentioned, if it stalls and just dumps a bunch of rain in the area, we're going to have some real issues.
All right. Mayor Kevin Anderson, we'll be thinking about you. Stay safe, sir.
Thank you.
For more now, I want to bring in Sandra Tapfumaneyi. She is the Emergency Management Chief of Sarasota County. That's expected to be directly in the bullseye, so to speak, of this storm. Give us an update on perhaps the fuel situation where you are and how many people have evacuated and are hunkering down in shelters.
Yeah, good morning. So thank you so much for having us on. So our fuel situation right now, we have gotten reports that there are some stations still left with fuel. So if anybody does need to fill up before they evacuate, this would be the time to go. There is not much time left, though. So we are expecting these tropical storm force winds to start right around mid-afternoon. So if people are leaving, now is the time to take action.
The added layer of danger to this is debris left from Helene. How successful, as far as you can tell, were cleanup efforts, and how concerned are you that, this debris at any speed being caught by wind could be deadly?
Yeah, well, we're very concerned about the debris. I mean, normally after you have a hurricane, a disaster, you have months, if not years, before your next disaster. So you have plenty of time to pick up debris from that storm. This situation in Sarasota County, we had Helene just 2 weeks ago. And so we had literally just a couple of days to clean up as much as possible. So the county, all of our municipalities, we've been working very hard to try to pick up as much as possible. Even as late as yesterday, we were going around with teams of people trying to pick up and get things to the landfill. And we've heard some great stories about neighbors helping neighbors, getting pickup trucks and going around and trying to get some of the debris out of the way. But we do know that this is going to be a challenge for us, an added challenge on top of everything else that we expect to come with a storm.
And I just want to emphasize what you said there about neighbors helping neighbors. People can get panicked, they can get frustrated, and at a moment like this, you want to cooperate with the folks that are with you as much as possible. And Sandra, I'm wondering from your perspective as an emergency official who has to stay and ride this out, what are you and what is your family doing?
Yes, well, thank you for asking. So, my family, I evacuated them over to the east coast of Florida. When you have to work a disaster, it's hard to stay focused if you're not sure whether your own family is going to be safe. So I just, I speak to all of our residents today because as a mother, as a wife, as a daughter, I want everyone to be safe. I understand that some people are hesitant to evacuate, but when you have loved ones that you're thinking about and you want to protect yourselves and your loved ones, it is not worth staying in a place that is dangerous. We have evacuated levels A, B, and C. Anyone living in mobile and manufactured homes, anyone living in a boat, and now is the time to leave if they haven't done that already. 15 feet of storm surge is incredibly dangerous. And we do not want anybody to be in the way of that storm surge. But we also have high winds. We have rain to contend with, up to 18 inches. This is going to be a serious storm for Sarasota County.
Yeah, I'm appreciative of your time at an urgent situation like this. And Sandra, Tapfumaneyi, our thoughts are with you, and we wish you the best. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
David Yeomans is tracking Milton for us this morning. He's a CBS News meteorologist and a hurricane expert. David, how serious is this based on all the storms you've seen, and what can people expect?
Well, Errol, this is likely to be the most significant, strongest hurricane that anyone living in West Central Florida has ever experienced. Not like Charlie, not like Ian, stronger and in a slightly different area. Anyone who has chosen to stay behind and weather the storm will lose access to 911 rescue, as even first responders will not go out in the height of a storm of this magnitude. And anyone staying behind can expect to lose power for days or weeks behind this storm. Let's get you caught up on the latest on this system on the satellite picture. Notice it is still a terrifying looking Category 5 storm. We're starting to see a little bit of wind shear trying to disrupt the system's organization now, but officially it has not yet weakened at all. Category 5 winds 160 miles per hour. It's just 300 miles away from Tampa and closing the gap quickly. We do not expect a Category 5 to make landfall, but the official forecast is now for a Category 4, the strongest to hit the Tampa Bay area in at least 100 years. 130-mile-per-hour winds, the most likely track into Tampa Bay or somewhere just south of there. It'll maintain hurricane intensity on its quick trip across the skinny Florida peninsula and then be out to sea and no longer be a threat to any of the U.S. Storm surge is a huge concern, just like we saw with Helene a little farther up the coast of Florida. This one down toward Tampa, though, 10 to 15 feet. That ocean level rise could be twice what Tampa Bay saw in Helene. That was a 7-foot ocean level rise. This could be the highest that they have ever experienced, with records dating back to the 1840s. Let's talk about the wind gusts. It's already breezy with rain picking up in Florida as the center of the storm approaches quickly. By 2 p.m., tropical storm force winds take over the Tampa area, over 39 miles per hour, and things only get worse from there. This is why your preparations need to be rushed to completion. Overnight tonight, hurricane force winds in Tampa, stronger winds near the core with gusts certainly over 110 miles per hour. By early tomorrow morning, hurricane force winds possible in Orlando, along the coast as well.